listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.
Welcome to this episode of Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive. We're talking about one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid, Home Alone. And as you can see, I've got Catherine O'Hara behind me, who seems to be following all of us with age gracefully. And so I have her chosen because I'm realizing that's the energy that I think I want to embody the rest of my life. I've got Amina, Kenyatta, and Raquel with me today. So if this is your first time watching, we do Act 1, reaction. Act 2, ask each other questions. And then Act 3 is essentially playing the game Truth or Dare, but personal development, being inspired by fictional characters style. So does anybody feel super compelled? Amina, you were like at the top, like I haven't rewatched this in quite some time. So if you haven't, maybe this will remind you to go back to it. Raquel or Kenyatta, do you want to kick us off with your reaction of rewatching Home Alone as an adult?
Sure. As an adult, I just told y'all I judged Catherine O'Hara's character. What was her name in the film?
Oh my goodness, I just had it pulled up in front of me. McAllister.
Anyway,
Kate McAllister.
Kate. So I judged Kate so hard when I was younger because I was like, she is such a bad mom. But rewatching it as an adult, I still judged her. I still did not get how they forgot Kevin. They counted I don't know. I love this movie though. Like this is like the perfect Christmas movie. And it was nice to go back to the cinematography of that era because everything was so realistic. I hate how everything is filmed in 4K now and it's just too crisp and too clear. That felt like it was being filmed around me. But I really love this movie and I'm excited to talk about it.
Raquel, how about you?
Yeah, I haven't seen it recently, but of course it's a classic, so we've all watched it many times. I love the film. It's funny, it's clever, and quite frankly, we were the age of Kevin when we watched this movie when it first came out. So he was a little bit older than us, but I do identify with his character and, his mischief, being at home, it was very relatable as a kid watching it. And then now as an adult, it's just a classic. It's a feel good. It has that 90s slapstick humor. It's family friendly. It's a great film.
It is. It's a banger. Yeah, it's like I was thinking the same thing. I love being home alone for one, so that's my dream. I live alone, I'm home alone, but it's funny because this movie now would be over in the first scene if it was made in 2024. Just, oh, answer your phone. That's it. Go pick up the kid. So it's really funny. It's like it's definitely of the times. It's definitely millennials. It's like we're the last generation that knew what life was like before that. Because that doesn't happen anymore. And now Home Alone is just send a text, right? So life before cell phones, and it was a vibe. Even though I haven't seen it in a long time, it's hilarious. It's a good vibe. It's a good story. It's a bop.
I'm with you, Amina. Like AirTags, Find My iPhone, all these apps. My mom still to this day always knows where I'm at.
Yeah, there's no way to get lost anymore. So what a time that was. We just send your kids out. Our parents sent us out at 8 a.m. Hopefully they come home around 10 p.m. Remember those ads? I was like, where's your kid? It's 10 p.m. That was real as fuck. Like for real. Like where is it? Like where are they? There's no way to know unless they're here.
Yeah, mom our instructions were to come home when the street lights came on because we used to play hide and go seek, lived on a cul-de-sac. My mom still lives in the childhood home, and all of the neighborhood kids would play. And like sometimes the parents would like let us stay out a little bit later, but like low key, like street lights were on. If she was in a bad mood and you weren't there, like you were in the house inside, like you were gonna get in trouble. I agree with you, Raquel. I grew up watching this being the same age as Kevin. And I, just like every kid, saw myself in him, of especially being the youngest, which we've all had that conversation about where do you fall in order in terms of your siblings. And when you watch it, he's getting bullied by his older brother. He gets looked at as the nuisance and nobody sees it. They're like, oh, why are you being such a pest? And I'm just mad at every single family member who can't see it because the house is busy. They've got a trip. They're really stressed out. They want to be on time. They need to make sure they know where the tickets are and the passport. So now that we're adults, we're like, okay, if you're trying to just like do all these logistics, of course, just the kids just fighting, you don't care whose fault it is. You're just like, resolve it. But then they like want to put him in the attic with his cousin who wets the bed. He can't get his slice of cheese pizza. Like I somebody who only prefers cheese pizza, when somebody doesn't save me a slice, like that's happened to me more times than I can count in my family dynamic. So honestly, I don't like to say the word triggered anymore. I like to say activated. And that was like, it activates me when they don't leave that kid a slice of pizza. And I haven't even made it past the first 5 minutes of the movie. And I'm already like, I feel seen. Yeah. And then you watch Catherine O'Hara throughout the movie being devastated and recognizing like what happens when you're not present. And one of my favorite facts is that John Candy was only paid like $400. He did it as a favor.
Oh, wow.
And there's a documentary about Home Alone on Netflix where they talk about the making of it and how it almost didn't get made. It almost didn't get the budget. Like the studio didn't want to do it, but John Candy did it as a favor to John Hughes. And so everything he did was improv because he knew Catherine O'Hara and he knew that group from Canada and Second City. And so like John Candy brings like the light of being like, you're doing good, relax. But then that this movie became what it was. Yeah, I could go on forever and ever, but I don't want to space fill. I watch it every year. And then now my nephew, Kenyatta, you're the only one on this call who's seen him in person. It's weird because
he looks just like him.
Looks just like Macaulay Culkin.
Just like him.
We were watching it. We always watch a movie around Thanksgiving, Christmas time as a family. And he was like watching it in front as like, Macaulay Culkin's doing the, and I'm like, I have a picture somewhere in the archives of the two of them together. And I'm like, they look like twins.
They really do.
Okay. I'm going to kick things off with questions. Think about yours. Favorite character and least favorite character.
Who's going first?
I mean, my favorite's Kevin. My least favorite is Buzz. Like but there's like the comedic humor when he's giving that like, one, you need to do this, and B, you need to do this, and D, and the other thing I remember reading was like Buzz's girlfriend. They had like a boy dressed up as a girl because they did it.
Yeah, it was like the director's son.
Ugly. Yeah, but watching Buzz is very difficult. The uncle who screams at him. Terrible. The other best character is probably what is the name of the gentleman? The one who saves him, Old Man Marley. Like that kind of makes me sad. Like you judging your neighbors and assuming their story, and they like assume he's like a serial killer just because like that man is living alone. Like how many?
But that's like one of my favorite things to do, to look at people, I don't know, especially out in public, and just like create their backstory. I'll never like talk to these people or meet these people, but I'll look at them like, oh, she looks like she was a dancer in the 80s who fell on rough times, but then found, I don't know, I create like a whole novella in my head about random people, but that's just me. It's fun. It's natural. It's natural if you do that.
Yeah. Favorite characters, least favorite characters?
Oh, for me, my favorite character was Kevin. Kevin was the star of the show. My least favorite character, well, I don't know. I kind of like Marv too. Marv was hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. My least favorite character was Kevin's dad.
Why?
Because he was just so, I don't know what the right word to use, like atypical about things. Like, oh, it'll be okay. We'll get back to him.
We'll just go to the apartment, like the
yeah,
like the kid cannot be found at work.
Like she's freaking out.
Go to the apartment. Let's get something to eat. She's like, I'm not eating anything until I know the whereabouts of my kid.
It just was not a big deal to him, and I was like, what? Like I'm already judging you because you forgot your kid. It's just like, oh, Well, we forgot a child. I don't know. I don't know. I know that a couple years ago, there's like this whole thing on the internet. It's like, what the hell did the McAllisters do? Because their house was insane.
Mhm.
And somebody was like, his dad ran a hedge fund and was part of scamming and all of that. I don't know. The dad was just always too lax the whole film for me. And I was just like, he had no character.
Active in Home Alone 2. Now, I did not rewatch it recently, but he
Mhm.
felt like more of an active character, maybe because in the second one, when Kevin gets on the wrong plane to New York instead of going to Florida, he's like, getting him batteries, and he's a bit more active in the second
Right.
one. And especially like even at the end when Kevin spent like $900 on room service, which like good for you, Kevin. Do you know that the hotel will do like the Home Alone package and put you in a limo with pizza and
Shut
bring
up.
you a Sunday cart? Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that. But those are my two.
Yeah, it's funny you say that though about the dad being kind of like not there and the mom is the active character. That was the whole trope of 90s TV sitcoms. And that's the epidemic with men today as well, because the weaponized incompetence, the being like sort of not responsible for anything at home vibe. That's
Right.
usually what breaks people up, right? The mom's all stressed out. She's the one doing all the work. She's trying to get the trip together. She's the one that probably organized it and made sure it was all good. And then it's like, why aren't you being a parent too, dad? Like, why is everything fall on the mom, right? So that was in the 90s. That was like every sitcom mom dad vibe. Mom is overworked, dad ain't doing nothing. So that's about 90s to me.
But it's like dad had the money. He was like, I've done enough
But that's not enough, right? We all know that
at
now. It's
all.
not, you can't just pay your bills, you have to pull your weight around the house too. So,
Absolutely.
but that was normal back in the day. Men didn't have to pull their weight. So he was just being the typical dad, that 90s dad. And that's why everybody divorced. So those 90s dads is 2024 spinsters now. But anyways, favorite character is definitely Kevin. I mean, the only thing I would have done, I would have stayed home. I would have enjoyed the moment. I wouldn't have tried to go. I would have just stayed home, order pizza, watch movies, see y'all when you're back. And the criminals were funny too. I mean, they're the comic relief. So it's a good movie all around. You can't. I don't know. To me, it's not serious, so it's funny, fun and games.
It's definitely unserious as hell. I'll tell you how unserious this movie is. There's a scene where Kate is like calling the police, and the police is like, "Your kid's home alone." Everybody's kid is home alone. Not
Well,
care.
like, you need to be talking to child services, ma'am, and they transfer it and they're like, crazy lady on line 1. Like, and then like, oh, and then they're going through the list of questions, like, this is not an emergency. All right.
Right.
Crazy lady, we're passing her back over to you. I will say that I think about when he went grocery shopping and the autonomy that he had, that he like knew he needed milk, like he was able to like completely fend for himself. That is something that when we're talking about parenting or the way that we grew up, like I remember doing those things. I feel like
Absolutely.
that I was that age. My mom sent me into the grocery store, like I knew what to do. I remember one time my brother had a baseball tournament. We went to Ocala, Florida, and my mom gave me her card, and I must have been like 10 or 11, and I went in there, sat at the table, ordered, and like the waitress, like you could tell the same way that the clerk cashing Kevin out was like very confused by the interaction because I'm like acting as if I'm an adult, and she's like, okay, kid, like whatever you say, like where are your parents at? But like my mom was like, the hotel was, she could see me in the restaurant, like from like the balcony of the hotel. Like there was that safety. But that's the other part, is like when you're a kid, you get the opportunity to act like an adult. And like all of us, all we wanted was that freedom. And he got to have something that we weren't granted at that scale.
Right. Raquel, what about you?
I agree. I didn't have a character that I didn't like in the film. I would say though, just to be different, Harry and Marv would have been my favorite characters because I think they really stole the show as the robbers, and they were just so entertaining. And I think the whole film, watching it over and over, I was always looking forward to that scene where they come into the picture. So they would probably be my favorite. I don't have a character I didn't like per se, but yeah, I just think they really they sealed it. It's like that's what you always remember is the robbers coming in and that whole how he booby trapped the home, like that whole thing, which we all wanted to do after watching that film. We all thought about how he would booby trap our home, and just that plays on in my memory of the film. So
Did any of you watch The Good Place? Okay, when I think of Home Alone, when you talk about the robbers, there's a character played by Jamila Jamil named Tahani, and she's basically like, think a Paris Hilton type socialite. And this guy makes her watch Home Alone, and The Good Place is like they're in hell, the bad place. And she describes Home Alone as like this neglected child abusing these older men. Like the way that if you describe the plot, if like you watched it now and didn't understand the humor, I'm gonna have to find the quote somewhere because it's perfect. Joe Pesci scared the hell out of me as a kid. Like when he held him up, like put him on the hook and was like threatening to like pull off his thing. Like that's when it got the most serious. And it was like the buildup for when Old Man Marley like took him out with a shovel.
A lot.
It was, and it is. What questions do any of the three of you have?
Yeah, like with that movie, that movie couldn't, like I said, I don't think it could really take place in today's world, in today's society. Could it?
Absolutely not. So I got a question. So one thing I vividly remember about Home Alone is Kevin's impractical fear of the furnace. And it just brought back so memories because as a kid, your imagination is so big and you're scared of like these random things. So what impractical fears did you have? Like, were you scared of the furnace as well in the basement or what?
I used to fear that a shark could make it from the Gulf and break into my mom's pool from the deep end. It was just something that I could be swimming, and maybe because I don't know if I dreamed it first or I literally feared it, but I just didn't fully understand the way that land and water's relationship worked. And I just was confident that a shark would be able to make it into my mom's pool and get me.
Totally get it. Totally get it.
I would say, I think it's from Look Who's Talking, the toilet seat that was like gonna engulf. That scared me for a while. And then all of those shows on Nickelodeon, Are You Afraid of the Dark? They gave me fears I didn't have, like monsters in the pool and things like that were not ever gonna be real.
Yeah, you're bringing some to the surface now. My first horror movie that I had, my first nightmare that I can remember was Leprechaun, when he puts his hand into the tree trunk and it comes out like bitten and they assume it's a dog. So then like tree trunks on the ground. Like I just like pictured a leprechaun being in there.
Oh my goodness.
Girl, that's so funny that you say the Are You Afraid of the Dark stuff? I'm not afraid of anything, honestly. As a kid, my aunt, she's really weird. She has pet snakes and bats, and we grew up like I'd watch horror movies by myself as a kid. I watched Saw, I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just sitting 7 years old by myself watching that stuff. So the only thing I was ever afraid of as a kid though was germs, and I always had hand sanitizer around. But I actually like horror movies. I don't, it's really weird. I can just watch them alone by myself and I'm actually fine. Germs, I can't do germs.
I think most of them are funny now, but the problem is when I dream, my unconscious self does not like them. Like I watched that show with Presumed Innocent with Jake Gyllenhaal. Did any of you see it on Apple TV?
No.
He gets accused of murder, and I highly recommend it. It's like 7 or 8 episodes. But I was going up at trial for 3 nights in a row, like being accused. So I love horror movies. I don't take them seriously. I think the most scared I've ever been with a horror movie was The Ring. And again, that wouldn't happen today because like none of us are gonna get
coming out the TV
by a VHS tape. But that girl crawling out of that TV, I was in 9th grade. I vividly remember my reaction to that movie because it felt like she was gonna crawl out of your TV and like come get you. And now when I watch it, it's ridiculous and it's funny.
But you know what it is? It's the music that makes scary movies. There's like this whole trend on TikTok where they replace the scary music from those movies with like some pop song, and it's hilarious. So for me, I just always just like the soundtrack of the scary movies and how they build up the tension and just like But you're right. It is a lot of subconscious stuff that maybe you shouldn't have in your mind if you're sensitive to that.
You're
But
the
I don't
one
remember my
that, like,
dreams.
once you
So
watch a movie, it like lives there forever. And it's also
Rent
one
free.
of the reasons why, like, bringing consciousness to the content we choose to watch, like, not that it has to be that deep, because I don't think it's like you watch one movie and your life changes forever. Like, it's more about, I think, like the patterns, and you could say that about anything in life. But like, what movies do you rewatch, or what shows do you rewatch? Like, Kenyatta, we were talking about before we started recording, when talking about Catherine O'Hara, Schitt's Creek. Like, that's a comfort rewatch, because as somebody who grew up in more of a Schitt's Creek, like Pensacola being a low key town that doesn't really put up with like extravagance, because they were like a ridiculously extravagant celebrity-esque wannabe family coming to like this down to earth, salt of the earth group of people. I like to rewatch that because it helps you remember, like, true to your values. And that's not saying I always watch, like, when you rewatch something like Friends and there's always like drama, like, does that make you more of a dramatic person? Like, maybe, I don't know.
it does. Yeah, no, it does. You're right though, because yeah, I wouldn't say horror movies are my like genre of choice, but every now and then, once or twice a year, I just pop on a horror film. It's fun. But like, I always think about the people writing those films, because now you're going out and researching, and you're the one who has a lifestyle and a pattern of creating like weird horror movies. Like, you're actually weird. The person watching them, you're good.
But I also think, like, to play devil's advocate or give like benefit of the doubt, I'm also thinking about how whenever you think like shit's going dark in your own life and you compare it to like how bad it really could be, like, that's a different escape in and of itself. Like, when we talked about Joker, everybody on this call knows I did not want to talk about that because I was like, I didn't want to be sensitive to that content. And then afterwards, like, we had this like very in-depth conversation about like mental health and kindness and like the effects of when somebody's ignored, and bringing it back to Home Alone. Like, this is obviously a lighter way of showing being alone can be a good thing, especially when you're in a family where you don't feel seen. Like, the next question I have for this group is, when you have that time alone, like, what is your go-to things that you're like, this is going to be a fucking great day because like I have the day to myself? Raquel, I feel like you should know this instantaneously.
Yeah, no, I do. No, well, I do. I live alone and I'm basking in my aloneness full throttle. I honestly like less distraction. So it's like there's a level of being alone, but I feel like in today's society, to bring this current, it's like I'm recognizing how much my phone is beeping, notifications or the TV. And so I'm actually becoming even more hypersensitive to stimulation. And I'm actually so alone to me, and feeling really like in my best element is like maybe out in nature, or like not on my phone at all, like completely reading a book, just completely immersed in one thing and slowly engrossed in that. So I find while we can be alone, we still need to pay attention to like what's draining our energy and what's perhaps distracting us, because it seeps in. I'm finding even when you're by yourself, you can really become very dysregulated, distracted. And there's new things that kind of take presence. So you have to kind of be very mindful of, like, in your alone time, like, what do I truly want to do? And how am I getting rid of things that are not serving me to help me recharge and recalibrate?
Yeah. Amina?
Oh yeah, same. I love being alone. Like, I think I've lived alone for 15 plus years at this point. I forget how old I am. But like, when I'm home, I like to work on music. I like to do creative things, and the phone can be super distracting. But what I do, I just like lean into it. Like, I'll be cooking and scrolling TikTok at the same time. I literally sometimes produce music while I'm scrolling. I'm like, instead of fighting myself all the time, I'm like scrolling and like producing at the same time. Is it ideal if you can actually sit down and focus on a task? Yeah. And eventually you get bored of the scrolling or whatever. But like, at this point, I don't even try to fight the addiction. I try to work with it, because like, we're all on it now. You can't, it's the truth. We all are on these
I'm
phones.
glad you said that. have like two things. Part one to what you just said, and you and I've had this conversation, I don't know how many times. If I'm gonna be on the phone and Raquel and Cynthia's not on this call, they know like my folders are affirmations. The background on my phone is my vision board. When I scroll through Instagram, like if I read a book, if I read Atomic Habits, I'm following James Clear and I'm following Atomic Habits. If I get a feeling like there was a period in the pandemic where I don't remember what celebrities at that point I followed, and I'm not gonna like call anybody out, but I saw something and it just gave me the ick. It doesn't even have to be anything like super specific, but if it gives me any sense of like, ugh, like I just mute them or I unfollow them. And it's not personal to anybody, whether it's a celebrity or it's like I went to high school with you. We haven't had a conversation in quite some time, but yeah, for me, it's cleansing it. So I look at it as a tool. But then to your point, Raquel, I do recognize that sometimes whether it's TV or it's the laptop or overworking, because Kevin's present, right? Like what is he doing when he's alone? Like he's doing the laundry, he's going grocery shopping, he's putting on cologne, cologne for the first time. Like, yeah, he's popping in whatever that made up movie was that they made just for this movie about like something with angels. Somebody's got to look that up. You know what I'm talking about? That he like tricks the pizza guy and the robbers.
Oh, like the mob movie?
Yeah, the mob movie. But yeah, he's not watching TV the entirety of the time. And that's not to be judgmental. Shit's going on in the world that sometimes we need to disassociate. Yeah, I don't even remember what part 2 was at this point, because like part 1 was like, what's our relationship to technology, to your point, Amina, that you can turn it into a tool and like to be more conscious of it. And the second part is Kevin had this most enjoyable alone time experience because he had the space to be present with himself and like figure out, if I were an adult or if I didn't have any responsibilities, like what would I do? And like dude was doing laundry.
Laundry is relaxing though. I do like laundry. Out of all the chores, I like laundry.
Well, come do mine. Like my laundry room's a hot mess. I hate laundry.
That is the only chore that I don't like doing, because right now I don't have enough space for my clothes.
No, baby, I'll do your laundry. I'll come cook, but I'm not cleaning that bathroom. I'm not. I'm not cleaning that bathroom. If I were to pick the
phone and call any of you, I would get it done, because I need my clothes to be color coordinated and I need them to be with the types that they are. So I want the shirts together and then them color coordinated. Like that's what stresses me out. I don't mind putting it in the load, like doing the load, but it's the organizing that I just want somebody else to do that. So it's already done.
The good thing is now we have all these services. We can get on our phone, and I treated myself to never cleaning my bathroom again. Right? It's only $60 a month to have someone do it. That's more than free in my life, right? So now we can use all these apps to have people solve our problem.
That is something I do treat myself. That I'm extremely grateful that I'm a place where, like once a month, it needs a deep clean, and that's when they come in and they're in the energy to like help me doing that. That's when I'm more likely to do my clothes, because I'm like, I want it deep cleaned and then I want my stuff done. And then everything in my life is easier when my space is cleaner.
I sometimes clean with my cleaning person. Exactly. Like he's deep cleaning and like he's doing the scrubbing the toilet and I'm folding the clothes.
For a cleaner coming, like I'm like, I apologize to them. I'm like, I just got done traveling. Like, I'm sorry.
But exactly, it's like, keep it clean. You need some of that accountability. That's why I just pay somebody and it all gets done and life is good, you know?
Okay.
You pre-clean before your cleaning lady comes, Lacey.
Yep. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. Let's not unpack that any further. I want to go back to the robbers for a second. Okay. I don't really know what the question is, other than like, so they're vetting these houses, which I appreciate the research. Like that is like that was like their dream spot house, right? They were the comedic relief. We talked about Joe Pesci I was afraid of him, but should they have endured that level of abuse from Kevin? Like,
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like should have a scar on his face from the iron. Like them stepping on the Christmas decor. The best part, was I thought when he's like, You look like a chicken.
You
Absolutely. They should have been
honestly,
tortured.
girl, I was about to just say something, but you said it. It's America. You stay strapped, love. If you breaking into somebody's house, get ready to die. That's a
And
death wish.
Kevin was strapped with the BB gun.
Right. If you come for somebody's life, somebody gonna come for your life. You break into my house, you're gonna die. That's life.
I
Simple.
mean, it is. But
That's
also
life.
Kevin, while torturing them, kind of proved why that house would have been a good house to rob, because they had cash, they had guns, they had all types of valuables. There's a lot of shit in the house that was worth stealing. So
They could have just taken the Christmas decorations from the outside and got a couple hundred. Honestly,
Couple.
you know?
They weren't looking for a couple hundred. They were looking for jackpot.
right.
Well, at least, I mean, true, they did pick a good house. So they were at least smart with that. If you're gonna go big, if you're gonna rob a house, go big, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I also
Terrible.
it was like a fun film for a holiday film, like breaking into like the premise is like he's by himself and he has to defend himself from robbers. Like it's not a typical holiday film. So it was very clever. And it would have been fun also to be on set watching that in action. I'm sure they had a blast making it.
Life was good back then. Like all of the damn neighbors were on holiday out of town. Like they were in Paris. Some other neighbors were gone to Switzerland or something. It's like you don't. I guess it's just the economy. Like we don't have that luxury anymore. But you don't see families going on vacations for Christmas or vacations for spring break or fall. Like we used to go on vacation for everything.
You're
Now it's
right.
just
I
like
remember that.
once a year summer vacation if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that. But man, I was thinking about that when I was taking some glimpses of him. I was like, parent, like our kids, well, I don't know, this generation of children, they're not going to get that, like being able to come together as a family and all go on vacation together.
Not if inflation keeps inflating, right? Like
That's so expensive. Like Disney used to not be a very expensive expense. Being from Central Florida, we would go and it was very reasonable for most families. And now it's so expensive. So
because this whole time inflation has been happening, people's salaries have mostly stayed the same. So that salary back in the day used to be money, and that salary today with the inflation and now spending half of your income on rent or a mortgage, that wasn't like it used to be like 5% of your income on rent or mortgage, not half, So when you had all that extra income, yeah, you could do it. And of course, some people are blessed and some people are going to continue to fight and not be affected by inflation. But
that's what you're saying, like what Kevin's dad does. It's like, is it less about what Kevin's dad or the mom, like what they were doing? Because like, let's be real, Catherine O'Hara was not staying at home. Like, look at this suit behind me. Like that's the suit that you're going out into the world and you're getting shit done. Like that was
you're right.
That was the 90s mom. The 90s mom worked too and took care of the house.
Yeah, but even in the 90s, like affordability, like that house, a Chicago middle class family with two working parents, like could have afforded that house and could afford to take their entire family to Paris. So
I remember back in the day when a house was like a 10-year thing. It was like, oh, it's going to be 300K and you're going to kind of like figure it out and it's going to be okay. Now it's like owning a house is going to take you 30, 40 plus years, maybe more, for a 1-bedroom. Like crazy. You used to be able to buy a house in 10 years, like just put your head down and figure it out.
Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, it was easier. Like there were no regulations with buying a house. You could have got a house that you absolutely could not afford because they didn't verify pay stubs. Tell me how much you make. Oh, I make 70,000. Oh, okay. You need pay stubs? No, not really. Like literally, that's how it was. And that's how 2008 kind of happened. So it was easy to be handed a mortgage back then. And you just had to make it work, like find a way to make the payment and you'd be all right.
Yeah, my grandma got her driver's license at age 12. She lied and just got it. Yeah.
Every time you bring up your grandma, I'm like, do we need to invite her to the podcast?
Yes.
Obviously.
Boss.
Well, I think as we're starting to wrap, one, before we go into truth or dare, what other questions do you have? If not, mine is favorite scene. Favorite scene and favorite lesson are the two things I feel like we need to tie a bow on a Christmas gift for this Home Alone. I know y'all see what I did there.
You little elf.
You go first, Lacey.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes, but the one that we haven't talked about, so I could have a list of favorite scenes, and I think I touched on some of the ones with the chicken line, John Candy, his interactions with Catherine O'Hara. But I want to go back to like Old Man Marley when he's like being vulnerable with Kevin and like is afraid to talk to his son, but he goes to the church so he can listen to his granddaughter sing. And it's the same moment that Kevin has with like the pigeon lady in New York, that like you're getting these like little gifts that aren't the core part of the movie, right? Because Kevin judges his mom, he judges his entire family, he's angry at all of them. And then he gets this lesson from Old Man Marley that if you don't forgive your family members, like then you're going to end up not talking to them. And so it's like, it's why learning to communicate and communicating with family members can be one of the most difficult things, because it, like from what we see, from what we know, we didn't choose any of them. Like, do you think Kevin would have actively chosen Buzz as his as his brother? And so that for me is a pivotal scene. And it's like, that's why Kevin's like, I gotta fucking defend this place, not just for myself, but like this is my family's house. And I do appreciate that. And then he kind of went through it again in Home Alone 2 with a woman who also was separated from her family. And I think that that's another reason why it's an amazing Christmas movie, is because fuck the gifts or the money or the trips. Like everybody wants to come home to a full house, but just don't eat my cheese pizza, you know? That's it.
Girl, you got me activated. Now I'm thinking about pizza. I'm trying to keep it clean right now, girl. Oh, yeah. But you know what? Because honestly, I haven't watched the movie in years, and certain scenes are flashing in my head. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is like, I really like movies that have, I always say this to Lacey, a nice start, middle, and end, and a lot of like character arc development. And I feel like you saw that a lot in Kevin. And first off, the actor, Macaulay Culkin, right? He's very likable, right? Like that's, you can't say that about every actor, and it's not every actor's job to be likable. So I think why the movie hit so hard and lasts so long in our psyche is because you can see yourself in him. And like you said, Lacey, is like there's a lot of stories underneath. It's about accepting your family and trying to make the most of it. And I like how the mom, she really cares. Like she's stressed out the whole time. And like, that it's just like, yeah, it's cute. It's a cute movie. It's a good vibe. And there's a lot you can learn from it, even though it's a joke. So that's why I think it's such a classic hit. And even if you haven't watched it for years, the energy of the story and the start, middle, and end stays with you for a long time. And Kevin makes a lot of progress as a person in that movie, which is cute to see.
I took a very maternal stance. Like the things that come to mind is like when Kate says, Kevin, when she yells at, and then at the end when they see each other, after her long journey home to get to him and make sure he's okay. Like that just stands out to me. So just those really tender moments of like the mother worried about her son and, and then at the end where she comes back home and finds him. I think too, there's like a dynamic with perhaps when we were young, thinking like that our parent would be doing the same or feeling that emotional distress for us. I think I identified with that and it was very tender. But obviously the whole robbery scene was like very entertaining and the scene I love to watch the most. But that scene with him and his mother was probably my favorite.
The scene that really got me was when Kate was in the airport in Paris and she meets the old lady and she's telling the old lady, she's like mother to mother. So to like kind of feed off of Raquel, like the maternal thing. And she's like, I got earrings, I got a wedding ring, I got a watch. And it was probably a Rolex or some shit because, they were rich. And she begged her for her ticket. So that scene was really cool to me as a mom. One of my favorite scenes, and it's just so 90s coded. When they got on the plane before they realized Kevin was missing, and they put all the kids in coach in first class. That's how parents were back then. Their money was not your money. And I think kids today, they don't see that. Kids today think the money that you make as an adult, they should have free access to. Back then, we did not dare. I never knew how much money my mother had. I never dared to ask. I got what I got. So that was just
I don't want to
tremendous
ask her
coming
mom
for me.
about how much money she has. Like,
But I still don't know how much my mother makes. Like, I don't know. But this movie's just so fun. It's going to be around for a long time, and it's one of those movies that they made a sequel. The sequel was equally as pleasant, as good as the first, as the original. But then they kept making them, and like the cast change and stuff. Oh, there's my time because there's my kids. But I think Home Alone will always be around. The originals, the original two.
yeah, Lost in New York. That's how I feel sometimes. Lost in New York. Okay, close out with Truth or Dare, Kevin McAllister, Home Alone style. Once again, truth is sharing something about yourself that's parallel to the story, and dare is after reflecting on this story, what would you dare yourself to do? Anybody feeling bold as ever?
I'll go. My truth is,
Let me go.
yeah, my truth is, I judged Catherine O'Hara then and now for forgetting her kid, but I forgot my kids. Not in a hot car or anything crazy like that, but did I walk out the house and go to Ross and forget that I had my kids at home? Yes, I did. Yes, I did, because I was stressed out.
Yeah.
And my kids are 11 years apart, so I had to call my 11-year-old at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I went to the store. I'm coming right back." And I was literally in Ross, and I left my buggy and came back home.
If there's anybody who can handle it, it's Genesis.
Listen, she's a drill sergeant with the little kids.
That's that cheerleader.
That's that. I forgot my kids.
Like, shout out to Miss Chansey. Anybody who's been in like intense cheerleading competition, like, you get in line. That is drill sergeant. You know, like, have you ever seen that Jack Nicholson? It's like when he's talking in A Few Good Men, like, you're in the business of saving lives. Like, you know, Miss Chansey, you drop somebody, like their foot grazed the ground, you're doing push-ups. We were just having this conversation. Oh, different conversation for a different day, but we were talking about how cheerleading teaches you the pressures. And like, yeah, Genesis can handle a couple kids at home because she can throw a girl up in the air and be in charge of catching that person and keeping them safe. I think she can take care of AC and Ava. Yeah. You can tell her.
Yeah.
Raquel, Amina, truth or dare?
I'm gonna dare, and I'm gonna dare all of you to be different. If somebody ever leaves you home alone, let them leave you, baby. Don't chase nobody. That's it. Enjoy your alone time. Dare.
That's the most brevity I've seen you exercise in a hot minute. That's kind of me. Raquel?
Yeah, I guess just like I'm thinking like Kevin, like dare myself to make the most of situations that you find yourself in, probably unexpected situations or circumstances, and know that you're resourceful, know that you've got the inner workings to figure it out. I think that's a good takeaway from the film. And like we've talked about the theme of like the 90s and the way we were all raised to be self-sufficient, go-getters, you know, thinking outside of the box. So just kind of remember the film in that way in our lives. And like, when we're in a situation, just know we've got this.
Yeah. I'm reflecting on what all three of you said. And like, Kenyatta, I think like if I had to summarize what you said, it's like being a parent is difficult and like you're going to make mistakes. And we got to see Catherine O'Hara show us at the most like dramatic way of like, shit's not going to be perfect all the time. Amina, yeah, like what is meant for you will never leave you, will never pass you by. And then Raquel, mine was similar to yours in terms of it being a dare, in that like sometimes we don't do things because we think we're not ready, like, or me. And also the same thing for the people around us. Like, do you think that they would have left Kevin at home proactively at that age? Because they all thought he was a baby. Like they saw him as just being the youngest in the family and not capable of things. So it's like, you never know if you're ready or not until you try. And like, that was what was so satisfying about this movie, is that like Kevin was always ready. And if there's something he learned from his family, like they all were confident go-getters, and he was exactly like them. And when he had the time and space to like exercise that, like he fucking crushed it. Because of course he did. It's Kevin McAllister. Yeah. Any closing thoughts before we wrap?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Winter Solstice, Happy Mariah Carey season, whatever it is that you celebrate, or as Buzz would say, like D, all of the above. I don't know. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next time.
Bye.
You're listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.